Welcome, welcome. This is the Alpha Evolution, and I'm your host, Coach Justin. And I'm back on YouTube. I took a little bit of a break during the summer, but the summer is coming to a close, so it's time to get back on the grind. And I wanted to address the topic of submissive women. And as some of you may know or have observed on my Instagram, I've been switching more towards dominance and submission and incorporating more of the BDSM lifestyle. And I've been in the lifestyle for a number of years, and I haven't really been vocal or public about it. But this is something that I'd like to bring forward as I continue my YouTube journey. And because I believe that BDSM is not what you think it is, and I think it's very important to bring this out into the public to help people understand that it's not just vinyl or leather or whips and chains and chokers and things like that. Sure, those things do pop up and they're certainly used in varying degrees, but it's more of a mentality, a lifestyle, belief system, and an understanding. And I have found that through my journeys through the limitless lifestyle of BDSM, that I keep learning more and more about myself. And just like the game, it gets deeper and deeper, becomes more and more refined. And I've learned more about myself the last few years through BDSM than I have through probably any other endeavor that I've ever taken. Provided that your ego is able to step aside and take a seat for a little while in case you need to take some bumps and bruises, either, physically, mentally, or emotionally. So what I want to talk to you about today is submission. And I'm bringing this up because a lot of guys talk about submission, that they want submission from women, that they want a submissive partner. And I think really what they're talking about is a cooperative partner, because a submissive partner is something completely different than a cooperative partner. And what is cooperation? Let's look at the word. Co, meaning together, operation, doing something. So doing something together, that's cooperation. I think that for the most part, because guys are the way they are, because the average man typically doesn't have the best skills when it comes to leading themselves, leading women, and leading relationships, that just the idea of cooperation is really what they're after. And they hear about things around submission and they believe that this is what they want. But I have news for you. I don't think that the average man, when he says, I want submission, I don't think he actually wants a submissive woman. And this is why. Submissive women require a lot of management. A lot. Because when a woman fully submits to you, and I'm not just talking about in action, okay? Because there's a difference. There's a difference between a woman who submits her body and a woman who submits the core of her being. And when she does this, when there is submission, even just on the physical level, let's just say like on the level of sex, okay? And she's not submitted to you emotionally or psychologically. It's just sexual. There needs to be a certain element of trust in there. Trust that you're not going to abuse her, that you're not going to kill her, that you're not going to maim her, right? So there is, because having sex is a very vulnerable place. And I'm talking physically. It's a physically vulnerable position for a woman to be in. So there has to be a certain element of trust, even if he's perceived as like a bad guy, right? Or he's a bad boy, he's got bad boy energy or whatever. She trusts him to a certain degree that he's not going to beat her up, that he's not going to rape her, that he's not going to kill her, right? So trust is very important. When it comes to submission, on a deeper level, beyond the external, beyond what she's doing, beyond how she's behaving. We're talking how she thinks, how she perceives the world, how she perceives herself, how she feels about herself, how she feels about herself when interacting with you, how she feels about you. All of these things coming down into the very core of her being. When she brings about trust in that to you, it's incredibly dangerous for her because, excuse me, because if you don't know what you're doing and she trusts you with this part of herself, it can completely ruin her. We're talking years of therapy if things go left. So it's a huge deal. All right. But let's say this works out. All right. You're such a guy that she wants to give all of her submission to. She submits her will, and you're making decisions for her. You're telling her how you'd like her to dress every day, what underwear to buy, what foods to eat, when and how to exercise, when to go to sleep, when to wake up, when to go to work, how you want her to talk, how you want her to behave. Because when there is complete submission, that's the management that you're going to have to undertake. Of course, it's consensual. This is something that she's consenting to, that she wants you to do, right? If she trusts you with levels that deep, where she trusts that you will make all of the decisions for her. Now that kind of edges into a 24/7 BDSM lifestyle, actually a DS lifestyle, meaning dominance and submission. And it's somewhat of an advanced sort of relationship. And like I said, it takes trust, it takes communication, it takes a guy who actually trusts himself enough to make these decisions and manage her behavior, her feelings, and her thoughts. So when a guy says, oh, I want a submissive woman, an average guy, I think what he is saying that he wants a cooperative woman. He wants a woman that he doesn't have to have a lot of pushback from. That when he wants to do something, she's not going to question his behavior. She's not going to question his choices. And this is, I think, what guys are really after. They don't want a submissive woman. So fellas, when you're saying, I want a submissive woman, I really don't think that's what you're looking for. And in my world, I actually have a lower attraction towards very submissive women. All right. There's another coach. His name's Coach Brody. He breaks down a lot of this stuff, and it's amazing. So check him out on YouTube. He goes by Coach Brody. And there's a type of woman who is feminine submissive. Okay. You can have a masculine submissive. All right. And I've been with women who are feminine submissive. They are the most submissive of submissives. And I find it unappealing because there is zero friction. She becomes part of me. And while I like that to a certain extent, it's not very fulfilling because I like a little bit of friction. That's just how I am. So the woman that I'm seeing now, she has that bit of friction. And in the DS world, it's known as being a brat. Now, it's not a brat 24/7. It's a streak that's in her. And this streak is, for the most part, playful. I'd say 98% of it is playful. And then there's 2% there, maybe 5%, that is, it pushes the line on my non-negotiables. But here's the thing. I'm clear and concise about what those non-negotiables are. So when she's feeling a little bit extra frisky and wants to kind of walk that line or just touch her toe onto the other side, I know it's for a reason. It's not out of disrespect. It's because she's wanting to play. She's wanting that energy. Because here's the thing. If you've got someone who's completely feminine submissive, you're going to have really smooth sailing. And that's great. That's really great for a lot of guys. All right. They just want to set the plan, they want it to go, and they want things to run seamlessly. And that's totally fine. But to come home to a quiet household, to say a woman that is not going to speak until she's spoken to, is not going to bother you unless you ask her to, is not going to do anything with you until you tell her to, is going to, here's your dinner without saying so, pour you a glass of water, a glass of wine, not say a word, right? Everything's prepared for you. Jacket comes off, she hangs it, right? Sits quietly, waits till you're eating until she eats, right? And to me, that sounds boring as hell. Okay. I like a little bit of that playful energy, a little bit of that pushback, because that allows me to be creative. Those creates opportunities of creativity. And, you know, in the BDSM lifestyle, there's a lot of people that hate brats. They can't stand them. And they say, oh, well, if a woman's a brat, she's not a real submissive. And in my case, I think it's great. I think that it offers a lot of opportunities for creativity. It allows me to think of ways to punish her, because I know that's what she wants. She wants to be spanked. She wants to be treated in a certain way. Because I'll tell you the truth, right? A lot of women like to be put in their place. And sometimes it's a light feeling, and sometimes it's a very deep, visceral feeling of wanting to be put in their place. Sometimes it's very surface, and other times it's a very deep need. And this varies in degrees from woman to woman. Some want it more deeper and harshly than others, or more frequently than others. But I have yet to come across a woman who does not ever want to be put in their place. And I know there's going to be pushback on that, perhaps from women who see this, but I guarantee in the heart of hearts that there is an aspect of a desire for a man who can make you feel like he is in control, and not taking control of you, but being in such a way that you feel comfortable relinquishing control to him in varying degrees. Maybe it's just in this situation or just in that situation, but it is there. It exists on some level. And like I said, for me, I like a little bit of fire, a little playfulness, right? Sort of like you ever see on the nature shows of a lion lying there with the cubs, and the cubs are messing around with the mane and pouncing on daddy's tail. And he just deals with it. And then after a while, he just gives like a quick roar to just a little one, to the cubs, or gives them a little swat, and just to tell them, hey, don't cross a line, right? It's cool to play, but don't go overboard. And the cubs are put in their place. So it's kind of like that. And then, like I said, it allows me to be creative. Allows me to come up with all kinds of interesting ways, and in a sense keeps me on my toes, because creativity is just like any other skill, where and dominance as well. Dominance is a skill where if you put that skill to rest for too long, you're not going to get as much out of it as you had before when you were practicing all the time. So if you kind of falter in this area of creating structure while also being creative about it, it's going to start to soften, and sometimes it'll slide away or crumble. So I think it's great having someone who is willing to bring that out of you even more. Because guys, I know guys can easily get stuck in routine. They really can. They can get up, you see like guys, they'll have 10 suits that all look the same, 10 shirts that all look the same. They'll eat the same breakfast every single day. They'll go to the gym at the same time every single day. They'll do their work time at the same hours every single day. On their time off, they do the same hobbies for the same amount of time and the same days. And they'll go through life in routine. and they get very comfortable this way. But here's the thing. Women love variety. It charges them up. And so as a man, you're in a relationship, if you're not providing any kind of variety, which is one of the 4 pillars, then you're not going to inspire her. You're not going to bring out the best in her if you keep the same monotonous life day after day after day. You have to bring in some creativity. And like an example is, say, looking at the type of literature and movies that women watch and the TV shows. There's never just a very simple linear progression of an event. Usually, if you look at these shows, there's multiple character arcs. There's multiple situations going on. There's crossovers between the characters and what they're doing. And so you jump into a show and say in the middle, and you say, what's going on here? There's too much for them to even explain. Or if they do, it's this long convoluted story of like, well, this person did this and they said this, and then they're connected over here and they were doing this, and then they dated and they got broken up, and then that person killed that person, and oh my gosh, that happens to be their brother from another mother, and then so on and so on and so on. It gets all this variety, right? And it's just percolating in the mind, which creates certain sensations. Now, you as a man, I'm not saying make it that complex, but you as a man need to be somewhat creative to also provide that variety of stimulation. And I think this is kind of what happens in relationships with guys. They get lazy. They put their feet up, and they just go through the routine of life and just include marriage or a relationship into that. And this destroys relationships, because that's not exactly leading. All you're doing is doing the functional right things to do in order to keep the structure together, right? So guys will say, man, I've been working. I work 10 hours a day. I provide a roof, clothes for us, trips, groceries. I do all the right things, yet my wife is unhappy, right? It's because you're boring. It's because you're absolutely boring. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Unfortunately, you kind of have to treat women like children sometimes, because children get bored. They need stimulation. They want to have fun. They want to be intrigued. They want puzzles to figure out. They want variety. And that's something that's not common amongst men. So you have to think outside of your own conditioned thinking, and getting out of the assumption that what's good for you is good for the gander. And it's not. That's not how relationships work. Now, I'm not saying to go out of your way to make her happy, right? Because then you fall into that trap of happy wife, happy life. Okay, your happiness should never be contingent upon her happiness. But to think that you can sit back and do nothing, and just your presence alone should be enough isn't. You have to put in. Now, if you're not a creative individual, then give me a call. If you want to learn how to bring out your creativity, because I think creativity is a learned skill. Right? I can paint and draw very well. I've been doing it for over 20 years. And I can tell you, I was not born this way. I worked my ass off for many, many years to develop this skill. So I do think that creativity is something that's inside us that we can bring out. It's just we're conditioned to fear it. We're conditioned to judge ourselves. And we just kind of never let those seeds grow. And if you don't have this, and you don't get enjoyment out of expression, enjoyment out of creating things, creating situations, and watching a response in someone's mind, almost in the same way when, say, you were to write a song and then you play it, play the MP3 for somebody, and you're watching them and you're watching their reactions, seeing if they enjoy it, seeing if they get an emotional response, see if they start tapping their foot to the beat, or if they get up and dance, right? If that doesn't, if that's not part of you, if it's not one of your interests, where you want to see how someone is responding to your creative expressions, then I really encourage you to get in touch with me, because this is absolutely necessary for successful relationships. There's many other things that are necessary, but this is one of them. Enjoying creative expression and having that as part of just your daily life. So if you want to know more about this, you'd like to increase your own creativity or bring it out from a complete, no man's land of creativity, trust me, you have it in you. Get in touch with me via IG. The links will be in the description of the video, as well as my other links if you want to set up a call or if you'd like to begin some coaching. Any other questions? Hit me up there as well. This is Coach Justin, the Alpha Evolution, and we're out of here.